Of spiritual abuse or any other type of abuse, I'm sure that you have probably had to endure some sort of humiliation ritual, especially one from a family member or a family group. And so in today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, how you maybe can see one coming and what to do about it. Because a lot of you have been talking about that in the comments, and it's something that's important to talk about. So, in case you don't know who I am, my name is Dr. Felicia, and I'm a licensed psychologist. And in today's video, I will be talking specifically about that family humiliation rituals. Okay, so. Well, first of all, how does this connect to spiritual abuse or other types of abuse? Well, many individuals who have been through spiritual abuse have also dealt with abuse from one or more family members. And this can be, and it can be any type of family. It could be extended family. It could be your family of origin. It could be a family of a partner's place or, spouse or whoever you've married into, a family that you've married into. The point is that these things do happen. And a lot of you have talked about how painful those things, those rituals are. And if you don't know what a humiliation ritual is, I have some videos about that on this channel. But basically, to briefly identify what one is, it is basically what it sounds like. It is a ritual that involves humiliating somebody. Many times, these things are done in groups. And they're done with the purpose of, in essence, breaking that person, breaking their will, um, gaining control over them through humiliation. I'm sure that all of us can point to a time when we were humiliated, especially by a family member. Whether they were abusive or not is not the point. The point is that humiliation does not feel good. Now, humiliation isn't something that you never get over or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is that there's a difference between being just humiliated by someone and having it be done as a ritual. And the ritual piece of it is very important because if you've gone through something like that, for instance, in your family, you may be more likely to deal with that in another setting. And the reason is, like for instance, if you have let's say you and your family attend the same spiritual institution and it is also spiritually abusive, right? Then you're going to see some common themes between both environments. And so, what do you do? Well, first of all, how do you know it's going to happen? There are there are ways that I believe you can tell. Well, first of all, what does a family humiliation ritual look like? I've talked about how what they can look like in spiritually abusive settings. I feel like from what the research and the things that I've done on this, to me, family humiliation rituals oftentimes are done in this with this mentality of like ganging up on one person. If you think about something like an unhealthy version of an intervention, that is what these things can look like. So think about somebody who, think about a family system and think about maybe you were the person in the family system who was blamed for everything. This is known often as the scapegoat. Then you probably have been through a family humiliation ritual. Now, again, you need nuance to understand things on this channel. If family confronting somebody about something they don't like or something that they have an expectation of is not necessarily a humiliation ritual, right? There are going to be times when there are going to be four people talking to one person, or three people talking to one person, or a whole bunch of people talking to one person back and forth. That's not a humiliation ritual. The part about a humiliation ritual is or what it involves is a targeted ritualistic way of breaking that person on the receiving end. So it could be let me give you an example. So let's say something, have you ever heard that phrase like this would have been better handled as an email? There may be some things that somebody could have just emailed somebody about, or maybe there's somebody in in your family that has an issue with you, and instead of them coming to you and being like, "Hey, I got this issue, let's talk about it," they tell everybody else, and then everyone else gathers to now try and get you together in front of everybody, and that's done deliberately. And that's done in order to break you, to make you look bad, right? Humiliation rituals are done in order to gain control over somebody. And so, for whatever reason that this person doesn't like you or has an issue with you, they've decided to use this humiliation ritual as a way of trying to control you. It also could be a passive aggressive way of getting back at you for something. People many things can be solved if people would communicate with one another in a healthy manner. But you have to think about this as well, that if you are, if there are people in your family who are either emotionally immature or unwilling to do the work that they need to do, they're not going to address problems in a healthy way. Now, it is also not always a safe or wise thing to meet with someone in a family one-on-one. So you have to use nuance around these things. However, what is important to realize is what is the ritual going on, right? Um, when people, for those of you, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments section, when you have been through a family humiliation ritual, what did it look like? What were some of the things that were involved? Um, they tend to be very emotionally volatile, right? And so you could see things like instead of people just, maybe saying, "Hey, I've got an issue with this," or "I don't like this," there's a lot of emotional volatility. Things like using profanity, raising voices, bringing up things that should have been resolved, but now they've got an issue with it again. And so you have to be really careful. Another thing that happens in family humiliation rituals are deceit, right? Deceit is another thing that can happen where somebody knows maybe that they can't lie to you one on one, but they know that they can go unchecked if they bring a bunch of people in to lie about you, or you tell or they tell a lie about you and they know that they won't face any consequences because there are a bunch of people there and they won't, if you call them out on it, then you look like the bad guy. So that's another thing to be aware of regarding how these family humiliation rituals work. They often are led by God, I'm trying to figure out like the right way to describe who that they're often led by, but they're often led by somebody who is a manipulative person, right? So they pull all the strings. Somebody will say that maybe they're like the queen bee, or if it's like a group of maybe they're over a group of women or something, or somebody else. It's usually somebody with a lot of power and a lot of influence that people are afraid to check this person. And the reason they get people in their corner through manipulation. And so these people are very adept at spinning a story, spinning a narrative. And so you might think, well, how is this different from just people ganging up on somebody and yelling at them? Well, the reason how it's different is because it is a humiliation ritual is done with an intent to bring the person on the receiving end of that down. And it's more strategic than just people getting together and yelling at people, right? If you think about it, when you guys have talked about being at the receiving end of a family humiliation ritual, you often talked about how you didn't see it coming. And that's deliberate. You're not going to see it coming many times because it's hidden under different pretenses, right? So it may be, "Oh, well, I would just like for us to, chat about something real quick." Okay, so you already don't have time to prepare. However, the people that are there, they've known about this thing for weeks. And so you just show up and, okay, hey, what's on your mind or whatever. And then everything comes raining down on you. That's done intentionally. And so you have to think about that. You have to think about who is, we talked about who's pulling the strings with these things, but these people also who are complicit in this, right? And what they're getting from it. When you think about how people who are involved, especially groups of people that are involved in abusive behaviors, the reason why they group together is because they don't have the either the courage or the skills or whatever it is to deal with somebody head on. They lack the emotional maturity to just talk about whatever the problem is. And so there are many, I could go on and talk about this, but when people ask, well, what do I do about these things? I would say that you really want to make sure that you don't get caught in one in the first place. And that's not an easy thing, but it's not impossible either. One way that you can really navigate this is by having really strict boundaries with people. If there are people in your family that you know are not emotionally mature, they're not truthful people, they're not honest people, they're manipulative, then really limit your time with them. If they say, oh, they want to meet with you, you don't have to go to the meeting, right? Or if you sense that something's off, leave, right? And you don't have to announce you're leaving. You can just leave. Some people, I know somebody that talked about this in a podcast I heard, and they said that they were going to call somebody. They're like, you know what? I'm going to call you right back. And they never called that person back. Or either that or they said they had to go to the bathroom. I don't remember what it was, but they just left. And so that is the kind of mindset that you need to have if you're going to protect yourself. Now, some people have this attitude of, well, I need to stay and talk it out. And I don't necessarily say you should or you shouldn't, but you have to know the kind of person that you are dealing with. Are you going to be talking with somebody who's going to be rational, who's going to be fair, who's going to listen to you, or is this person just bent on humiliating you, right? And the reason that they're doing this, it's not just, oh, well, this person, I'm going to embarrass this person and whatever. There's a reason that they're doing it. It's usually to gain control, to spin a narrative a particular way. There are many reasons why things like this can happen. So, I would like to hear from you. Have you ever been on the receiving end um of a humiliation ritual in your family? And if so, what did that look like? How did you navigate that? Did you end up leaving? Did you end up talking to the person? Like, I just would like to hear from you all as to how you dealt with it and advice that you have from other people about that as well. When we deal with things like this, it's important that not only do we know how to avoid it in the future, but also what sorts of advice, we would give to others and give ourselves, back then about it. So I would love to hear from you all in the comments. My website is skillsetcounseling.com. You can go there to learn more information, and I hope you have a wonderful day that is filled with peace. Okay, bye-bye.